Casey, thank you for having me. We're here, guys, in Casey's studio. You might actually know Casey more under the name of Hero. You and I met a couple of years ago. We were talking about that, like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We met in LA here at an event. I think you were painting at the time. And since then we had a collaboration that we worked, and
when we crossed paths, I was painting for Fashion Week.
That's right.
And we were doing live painting, and I mean that was just a fun and different experience at the time, because I was doing a lot of self-sanctioned work in the greater Los Angeles, All City, and it had got me enough attention to provide me opportunities to meet other people, do other things, be invited places. And it still offers that. And I had a large solo show. I think I showed something between like 25 and 30 pieces,
right,
which was fun, exhausting, but it was awesome. It was a great turnout, and I had an opportunity to have a large space to talk about or to share different vantage points, to talk about different subjects through artwork, and even to express different styles that I have. I'm definitely known for not sticking to a style.
Yep.
I think now more than ever, there's so much data or information that we can consume on a daily basis. Music is one of my favorite things, and it's changed from having to save up and buy an album. That has is relative to how even I am influenced by other artists, because I can see artists at any point in time.
Sure.
And I think that influence, or I think that access to media, that access to different physical art, that access to different musical art, has a direct influence. And I think the same thing is with current events. I think a lot of current events are social issues.
Sure.
Some are political issues. Some do revolve around policy. But I mean, now more than ever is kind of that age of information, and we kind of get to choose how we critique, how we read it or experience it.
Sure.
If we choose, and
that's what driving your work, and the way you get kind of move from one direction to another.
That's what definitely drives my work. It would change my work from a simple one layer stencil when I was just playing around with Alf Pacino, and with generating something that could be shared globally, and then challenging myself to something that would be more dynamic.
Sure.
To really try to stretch myself. And when I watch other artists, or when I see other techniques, and then it just goes back to the studio where it just marinates, and then just one day I'm how do I do that? How do I communicate that? How can I communicate a feeling? How can I communicate a texture? How can I communicate a color pattern? So it might be years between a moment of influence to what I would feel like a finished product that I would put out for an audience to see.
Just talk to us about the role of social media for you as an artist, and also just if you have any advices for anybody watching the vlog, just on how you use it, how to leverage it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's been a learning process. It's been an interesting process. I was probably using Instagram 6 months into it being an application, into it being a company, and I'm still in the same mindset where, I was just using it to generate, imagery that I would want to see. Things that I would shoot, things that I would make, and then putting it out there, and if I would want to view it, then that was my ultimate goal. And it's been this this learning progress. It's been an experience. It's been, I think, something that a lot of artists, a lot of people who produce content, or creators, I should say, look at and work with on a daily basis, because their audience can be larger than 10 years ago.
Sure.
I think specifically for artists who are creating physical works and paintings, your galleries used to be the only way that you would get like a larger audience. And now you don't necessarily need those. And now you can be, people can find you off of someone reposting your work. People can find you off of a hashtag. People can find you off just a picture. And so that changes how, I know that changes how people like look at social media, and it changes how they even question like what content they want to put on there. And I think that can be intimidating for some people. I think it can cause people to be insecure about, all of a sudden like the number of likes that they're getting, and was my art like that great, and was this post better? And what I've learned is that you'll have followers that will follow you for years, and that will show up at a show, and tell you that will contact you and ask for, a 6-foot commission because they've loved your work for years, and now that they're ready, they bought a new house, they moved into an office, they got the promotion that they wanted, and it's a reminder that you didn't have to chase a certain audience, you didn't have to impress a certain group of people, and that you didn't have to do what was cliche or in the moment or popular, and that when you say like when you're in your own lane and you're creating in that style, you're gonna have people who vibe with you. And when you have a path of 5 years that looks, like doesn't like it's not distinctive. It doesn't look like you hop from rock to rock. Right? It looks like it's kind of a cloud formation. It's all over the place. You did a little here, you did a little there, like how tree branches work, right? Like cool. Like you didn't take a straight line. You took this path that was like that. So where do you go from there? And I think the path is similar. You keep on going on like that path, and like that path. What has taken me from like when I met you like 5 years ago till now is that same objective of growth as an artist. And I think,
is it a growth in technique, in learning new aspect of your work, learning how to perfect your brushstroke, or what is it, or is it like going into like a totally different field?
I think I think that's a great question, because I think some of it personally will be technique. I haven't for myself like improved like certain techniques, or I would like to do something better, right? And other artists I think can say it's like, well, you need to do X or you need to do Y. At the end of the day, like, it's great to have mentors. It's great to have people who you confide in like their opinion, and you still have to like do what's true to you and like your growth. Because a lot of times like growth for me is I have an idea. It's attached to an emotion in my head, right? So there's an idea, there's an emotion, there's an image, and how do I convey that? And how do I convey that in a way for me that's not boring?
Sure.
And a lot of times that's it. Like if I've done it before, if I have painted in this style before, to me, there's not too much growth there except for getting to like point A to point B, which is the finished product. So if I can get to point A to point B and stretch myself and use a different technique, use a different medium, hone in on certain skills, like whether it's like using lighting better or texture better, whether it's using like space, whether it's painting on a large scale like the painting behind us, or a really small scale and getting that same emotion, like those will be always personal challenges, and it might change. It might change, what I'm like, really gung-ho about today might change in 6 months, where I'm like, I thought that's what I wanted to do, and now I realize doing that this other area will provide more growth for me. And I think that's important. I think that's hard, because there's some artists that are great artists that get into like their own. They definitely have a niche. They have a lane. They paint a certain style, and it's recognizable, and that's great. It's great to be a recognizable artist when you see that artist and you're like, yeah, that's so and so. And whether you see that art pop up in like Tokyo or Berlin or New York or LA, it's like that's so and so. versus like an artist whose styles kind of morph, right? And you're not always too sure if it's that artist. The hard thing about being the artist where it's like that so-and-so is, do you continue to produce because okay, it's recognizable, it sells, and it works. And if that doesn't get boring for you, by all means, keep going. If you start getting bored with that, like, what do? Because you have to kill off part of your ego that is successful.
Sure.
And venture into something you've never done before, something that your previous fans, collectors, audience may not connect with as well, or you might have to build a new audience.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. And
it takes courage.
It does, and like it takes, it definitely takes like a level of honesty of like what is the most important to you.
Sure.
Because I mean, like there's no harm, no foul to wanting to like earn a living, so I can't fault anyone for that. And then there's that other side of you that burns deeper, like that's a passion of what you want to do, what you want to try. And I mean, this goes back to like the social media, like, and then you're in, this goes back to social media, and then you're in an audience where you can get like that live feedback, where you can get people who might not respond as favorably, and that's all part of the process, because at the end of the day you're not necessarily doing it for them in the first place, but it's all hard to remember as it's going on.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot about growth. I think it's a lot about taking it's a lot about taking this image, right? So one of the reasons why I was just experimenting. I was experimenting with like pop culture and like that style, and the style of like imagery that's like 2D, but kind of looks 3D sometimes. And the icons that I chose were ones that were important to me, or ones that stood out to me, ones that had influenced me. Mm-hmm. And there's still like some that I want to do that I will like eventually, just because it's for me.
Sure.
But I mean, something about this image that relates to me. It's like, it's cool that I love that it relates to other people, but what it really related to me was there's just a quote about treating every day as it's your first day, in relation, Biggie was talking in relation to being a musician.
Sure.
Right? Treating every day like it's your first. Treating every day like you're an intern. And I think looking at art in that way as like, this quote unquote like starving like artist that people relate to when they think about like classical artists like Van Gogh. It's like, oh yeah, those starving artist type that's like constantly creating work to sell, but it's just being driven from within. And I think looking at that, like if I'm being honest and like treating every day like it's my first, and treating every day like I need to create with like that passion and that intensity, my artwork will continue to change on its own.
This is great. It was a real pleasure. Thanks for the interview, and we'll keep in touch.